Can I get a green card if I lied? So the short answer is yes, you still can qualify for residency. This is, of course, assuming that you already have a sponsor. So it could be an immediate relative or family preference sponsor petitioner. And if it's immediate relative, that sponsor has to have U.S. citizenship, okay? U.S. citizen by birth, by automatic acquisition through a parent, for example, or through naturalization, okay? So the other thing you need to know, but usually when people come into the situation, like it's usually not the situation like, oh, John, I confess, I lied before. It takes a little, I know it takes trust, right? Even in a consultation, it takes trust for you to admit certain things. And fortunately, so far, maybe except maybe one or two people, so far in my career, everyone's been forthcoming. After a little bit of conversation, of course, you want to make sure you trust the lawyer you're speaking with. Every consultation with our law firm is confidential. Okay. The only people we would share it with is just people on our team, not with anyone else. Pretty much think of it as like a Navy SEALs operation. They can't share certain things because it's discreet. It's supposed to be covert, right? It's supposed to be secret. That's the way we think of these things. So, yeah. And usually people that call in, they may have tried to file on their own or with a previous lawyer or something. And then I don't know why, but maybe that prior professional didn't know about this, but the solution is a waiver. Okay. The only problem in applying for this waiver is that you might not have a qualifying relative. Okay. So a qualifying relative, it may depend on the reason, what we call in legal terms, grounds of inadmissibility, aka reasons of why the government would not approve your application. Okay, so the most common one recently has been COVID. Like some of y'all don't want to take the vaccine. I get it to some extent, but it's your body, your health, right? But if you don't take the vaccine, then you can apply for a waiver for that scenario too. It's actually the same form, but this form is used for many different reasons. All right, so you can apply for this waiver. And let me see if I can share my screen. So I'm just reading off the screen here that if you're inadmissible because of fraud or misrepresented a material fact. So basically, a material fact is essentially anything that's related for the benefit of getting immigration benefit. So it could have been in the past when you applied for a visitor visa, which the form online for B1, B2 is DS 160. Okay. DS 160 is for any non immigrant visa. All right. So you can, if you've done that, I know it sounds weird. You might think, well, John, why is that the case? Congress understands that you may have had a little hiccup in life before, so they're going to give you another chance. But again, it's not allowed for everyone. Letter A here, I'm going to highlight it for y'all, is that if you have a qualifying relative that's a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident who's a spouse or a parent, that's very important. Because some people say, like, well, I've been here for 20 plus years and I have a kid, adult kid. Actually, it doesn't even matter what age they are, and they're a U.S. citizen or they're a resident. Most likely it's because they're a citizen. But then a lot of people say, well, can they count as a qualifying relative? Unfortunately, no. Okay, let me share my screen again. Unfortunately, no. They can in other scenarios, but not for this one. Okay. So again, here it says U.S. citizen or resident, spouse, or parent. Or it says if you're fiance visa petitioner, that can count. It doesn't have to be your spouse. So the second key thing here is would that person experience extreme hardship if you were denied admission? So denied admission, even though you likely would be in the U.S. already right now, most people who are in this situation that call us are in the U.S., but you can apply if you're abroad. But even in the U.S., you might get a little confused with the language because it does use the word admission, but you're like, I'm already here. So, but yeah, once you get the green card, then technically you've been admitted in that sense. It doesn't have to be at the airport or the border necessarily. Now, if you are applying for VAWA, like I think is it Chiku earlier that mentioned this or stated that she just got a VAWA interview. So anyway, if you're a VAWA sub-petitioner and the qualified relative can include a child, okay? And it could include yourself. So it's kind of interesting how that works, right? And here it doesn't actually have spouse in here, which makes sense because your spouse is the one who allegedly abused you, right? So it can include child for if you're a VAWA self-petitioner. In terms of qualifying relative, to explain how they would suffer extreme hardship if denied admission. And then when you explain hardship, see, it doesn't show it in instructions here, but somewhere tucked in somewhere in the legal language and other legal documents, which is why I think people really need a lawyer in this situation, absolutely, is about hardship for waivers, is because they want to know the hardship in two different ways. What is the hardship if whoever the qualifying relative is, if that person was in the US while you were the immigrant, the foreign national, is outside the US. Okay, that's one way. The second way they want to know is, what is the hardship if the qualifying relative, left the US and lived with you outside America? So those are two different ways you have to explain. So even if you hire a lawyer and you're like, well, didn't we have to cover the other part? Yes, you do. USCIS wants to know two different scenarios about hardship. Now, the other thing to know about hardship, is that what exactly do I talk about? What do I write about? It does not require to have a medical concern. It doesn't require that someone in your family or the qualifying relative is ill. We've had most of our clients don't have a qualifying relative who is sick or ill. All right. You don't have to have someone that's like in a deathbed or something like that. Knock on wood, thank goodness. But we most of the time focus on financial hardship, we just really, at the end of the day, we focus on understanding our client's day-to-day life. And we actually have one of our guidance documents, if you want to call it that, is like hardship books, PDFs, is we have a calendar Sunday through Saturday, like literally tell us what is your typical day. So I know some families have a lot of stuff that they're doing, not just work. And some of y'all work at late hours, like what do you call it, graveyard shift. Some work like regular hours, 8 to 5 or something, 9 to 5. But think about it, all y'all have different lives. And so we really take the time to understand our client's life. And believe it or not, a lot of clients, maybe you're in a situation where, John, I can't write the letter. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't you know your own life? So some of y'all might think like, isn't it easier? Isn't it easy? Yeah, I mean, it's not actually. Think about when you're trying to write your own love letter to your spouse or significant other, and or even not a letter, just a greeting card, a birthday card. Now, let me know in the comment section if you've been stuck writing a greeting card. And it's just, greeting cards usually, I would think, I could be wrong, maybe you're different, but maybe these greeting card messages are like 2 to 5 sentences. And I'm sure it's not just I love you, but I don't want to call anyone out if that's all you write on it. I'm guilty of that. Okay, so I'm trying to do better. But imagine these waiver letters, okay? The letters to explain hardship, those two different scenarios. There's no like black and white page number length, but typically after said and done, we're speaking with our clients, and we like to have it double spaced, okay? So it's easier for the officer to read it. But it's typically 4 to 8 pages. That's the average, okay? So don't worry, it's still not a book, but with all said and done with our different questions that we help with our clients, it can be at least 4 to 8 pages on average, alrighty? All right, thanks so much. Y'all have a wonderful week. Take care.